We're gonna get our acceleration here, and there's a giant puddle right there. Okay, now we'll get our acceleration. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're gonna be going over a Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro. But first and foremost, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller Toyota here in Murray for giving me some time with this 4Runner TRD Pro. If you're wondering, this particular one is a 2019. It's certified pre-owned. I believe it has about 7,000 miles. Check out their website for the most up-to-date pricing on this particular one. But let's get right into the video. Under the hood, we have a naturally aspirated 4-liter V6 that goes through a 5-speed automatic transmission. Power outputs are 270 horsepower and then 278 pound-feet of torque. Let's go over the front end of the TRD Pro. So first off, you get the really cool venting there at the top of the hood, which definitely makes it look a lot more aggressive stylistically. And then it looks like the previous owner added one of the bug guards here to the top portion. And then notice you've got the old school Toyota logo there in the center. And then we've got these halogen bulbs just down below, and then the fog lights down below that. Now this does have a 1-inch suspension lift over a regular 4Runner, so it does sit a little bit higher in the front end. And then also, if you look underneath, you've got the TRD skid plates, which adds some protection, because again, this is the TRD Pro, so it's supposed to be like the hardcore off-road package. Let's go over the tire and wheel setup first and foremost. So we've got 17-inch wheels, and then wrapped around that we've got two 65mm tires. They're all-terrain tires, and you guys can see the tread pattern on them. Super aggressive, great for the off-road. You get tons of grip with these tires, and then you also get mud flaps as part of the TRD Pro package, and then in the rear. And then yes, you do get the TRD wheels, which I mean, pretty self-explanatory because you guys can see it says TRD on it. And then notice you've got the painted fender flares here, and then at the top of the mirrors, those are also painted. And then the TRD Pro badge there on the back, and then notice the rack there on the top. And let's get into the suspension. Now, coming to the suspension here on the TRD Pro, we've got TRD tuned Fox high performance shocks in the front and the rear, and then the rear shocks have remote reservoirs, which I mean, obviously from an off-road perspective is awesome. I'll show you guys the rear shocks in just a moment. And then here in the front, we've got TRD tuned front springs as well, just to make it so that this is a little bit more capable on the off-road. And then there's a look again, those are the front ones, and then here's a look at, well, I mean, at least what we can kind of see here in the rear. Most of it's covered up because you have the wheelhouse liner to protect everything. Now let's pop in the back of the TRD Pro. So first off, the payload capacity is 835 pounds, just so you guys know how much off-road stuff you can throw onto the TRD Pro. And then notice we've got a full power outlet back here. Storage space is great here. You can get a third row with the 4Runners. This one doesn't have the third row, and other than that, that's everything for the backs. So, well, see ya. Let's finish everything else up with the rear. So again, you've got that rack on the top. Here's kind of like another viewpoint of it. And then coming down below with the lights, I really like this portion here of the lighthouse, kind of white, just looks really cool stylistically. And then notice we've got a receiver hitch just down below. Everything's pretty much been blacked out with all the badges and everything as part of that TRD Pro package. And that's everything for the rear. Now here's the door panel in the back of the TRD Pro. So first off, we've got the leather all over the door panel with the red accented stitching, and then notice you've got the kind of like gray metallic trim right there. And then here are the seats in the back of the TRD Pro. So we've got full leather here. Again, you've got more of that stitching that goes all across. And let's actually pop in. So stepping in, you have to step up just a little bit. Definitely is higher up off the ground. And then sitting all the way up, I'm 5'11", I fit back here fine. You guys can see my leg room, and then you do get rubber floor mats, which is nice. And then you've got some vents right there, the couple of 12 volts. And then this pulls down to be some cup holders, and that's all for the back. Now let's go over the door panel here in the front. So again, you've got the same stitching, and then just down below with all of the leather trim, and then you've got the metallic trim right here with your window controls there at the top portion. And then here are the seats. So it says TRD on it, and then you've got the full leather again with the stitching that goes all the way down below with your power adjustments there on the side of the seat. And then notice the pedal layout there at the bottom. And then this is just to turn on the outlet. You've got your mirror adjustments right there. The steering wheel is manually adjustable, and there's one more look before we pop in. Here's the steering wheel in the TRD Pro. So you've got the leather at the top and the bottom, and then perforated leather here on the sides to get a little bit of a better grip. We're actually going to grab it most of the time. And then you've got your voice command, phone controls right over there, volume controls, and then notice we've got your cruise control just hiding there in the back. Light stock, and then we've got our windshield wiper stock on the other side, and that's all for the steering wheel. So you've got the gauge cluster here, you've got the RPMs on the left side, on the right side you've got the speed, and then you have that little center screen which shows you the speed, which direction we're facing, which is southwest right now, the temperature outside, and then the odometer. You guys can see this one's 7,200 miles, so I was pretty close. I said about 7,000 miles. Here's the center infotainment system. First off, we're going to pop it into reverse. You can see there's a backup camera with the trajectory lines. They do not turn with the steering wheel. And then as for the rest of the infotainment system, it's pretty easy to use. It's not as good as Toyota's newer infotainment system, but I mean, it still gets the job done. So like we can go and see the traffic, and you can see those shortcut buttons on either side if you accidentally get lost, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, again, pretty self-explanatory. It just doesn't look as pretty as the infotainment system in the newer cars. Down here we have our giant climate control knob. So you got the temperature, the direction, and then the fan speed. It's just a single zone climate. And then we've got more areas where we can charge some devices. We've got a cup holder right here. And then we've got our driveline select right there, which has your 4-wheel high, your 2-wheel high, your neutral, and then your 4-wheel low. And then here is the shifter that says TRD at the top for the 5-speed automatic. You can shift the gears yourself if you want. And then notice that they did the carbon fiber trim all around that. And then you have this that kind of looks like the front light, which I think is always pretty neat. Heated seats. And then this is for the rear window, which, yes, it does go down, which I think is an awesome feature. And it's the whole window. More car manufacturers need to do that, but right now, if you want that feature, well, you got to get a Toyota. Now here's the center console. If we open it up, you can see that storage space is really good. There's another 12 volt inside of it. And then you got more of that red stitching. And then coming over here, we've got the glove box with all the owner's manuals inside of it, gray trim above, and then you've got kind of like the interesting texture trim here at the top. I don't know what to really call it. There you go. That's what it looks like, and that's all. Now up top here, first let's go over the roof. So we've got a sunroof, and then you have a cloth headliner. It's a lighter colored headliner, and now let's get into the off-road stuff. I'll show you guys the dials in just a second, but we've got our multi-terrain select at the top. So first off, notice that you've got the rock, and then we've got the mogul, and then we've got the loose rock, and then we've got the mud, sand, and dirt, and then we can turn it right off. So those are the different modes. So everything's controlled pretty much up here. We've got our locker for the rear, you've got your A-track, and then the stability control, and then this is that drive mode select, and then over here this is kind of like your crawl control, if that makes sense. You've got the different modes on that, but yeah, all the dials and everything are here at the top. So you kind of feel like an airplane pilot when you're like, oh, I need to change drive modes, and you're like doing a switch here at the top, which, I don't know, it's pretty cool. Now that we're done going the interior here on this TRD Pro 4Runner, let's quickly get into the pricing. So in terms of pricing, this particular one right now is priced at about $49,000. Again, go check out their website for the most up-to-date pricing, but it just shows how well these have held their value, because brand new, these were anywhere from about, I think, $52,000 to $54,000. And so the fact that this is now, again, it's a 2019 and it's got 7,000 miles and it's still almost as much as a brand new one, again, just shows how well these held their value. But let's take it out and see how it drives. Talk about visibility here in this 4Runner TRD Pro. So first off, visibility over the hood is great. A little bulge in the middle doesn't even get in the way. Here's your visibility through both of the mirrors, and then here's throughout the rear as well of the 4Runner. And that all being said, let's set off. We are setting off here in the 4Runner TRD Pro, and first off, let's talk about the road noise and the ride quality with the TRD Pro. So compared to other 4Runners, it feels pretty much the same for the most part on road. The only difference you feel is when you go over bumps, and I'll get into that shortly. But when you're just driving along, it's about the same amount of tire noise, maybe a little bit more, but it's pretty much the same. And then in terms of just the rest of the noise that you get with it, it's about the same. And then compared to other cars, it's actually pretty quiet. Like, you hear a little bit of tire noise, wind noise is very minimal. And just overall, it's a pretty well insulated cabin. And then from a ride quality perspective, it's really smooth. You definitely have like that big SUV substantial feel with it. Steering's very light. In terms of the directness of the steering, it's it's okay. There's a little bit of vagueness, but it's not horrible. It's not like a Jeep Wrangler, for example, where the steering is kind of all over the place, floaty. This definitely isn't like that, but it's not crazy precise either. But when you go over stuff, the shocks absorb it very well, and so you really don't feel it. And that's definitely a huge benefit to the system that this has. Yes, it makes it crazy capable on the off-road, but on-road, it makes the ride quality feel a lot nicer, which again is a huge benefit. Now we're gonna get our acceleration here, and there's a giant puddle right there. Okay, now we'll get our acceleration. So that 5-speed automatic transmission is decent when you have it in automatic mode. I've driven the 4Runners in the manual mode. I don't really recommend it unless you're going down a canyon or something like that and you want to be in a lower gear. But you can definitely feel that it's an older transmission. It's not as quick or as smooth as some of the more modern transmissions, but I mean, it gets the job done. And it's extremely robust and extremely reliable, so you kind of have that benefit. These puddles are big. I feel bad because I'm kind of getting this a little bit dirty from how big those puddles are. Let's actually get into some things up here with the TRD Pro 4Runner. So first off, from the exterior, I think it's a really good looking vehicle, especially in Voodoo Blue. You guys know I like standout colors, and Voodoo Blue is definitely a standout color. It definitely makes the TRD Pro pop, and you look at it and you're like, wait, what is that? And then you go, oh, that's a TRD Pro. It's pretty cool. So I think they nailed it from the exterior. I love the blue, and then you have the little red accenting with some of the TRD badges, like on the wheels, for example, and then the red accenting from the shocks. I think it all looks really good when it's all put together. And then in terms of the interior, the seats are very nice. They're really comfortable to sit in, and because the leather is not perforated, these would be really easy to clean off if you did take this on the off-road and you got the interior dirty. Just all these surfaces in the interior would be very easy to clean off. Kind of know that now from taking enough vehicles off-road and having to clean them out. And then in terms of the driving, the power is decent. It's not crazy. It's more than enough for the off-road. On-road, you might feel like you need a little bit more, but off-road, it's more than enough. And then, like I said, with the transmission, it's really robust and reliable, but it's just not the quickest from a shifting perspective. And so overall, what do I think about the TRD Pro 4Runner? So first off, I think it's a really good value because of how well it's held its value. And so it's one of those vehicles you can pretty much drive for free at this point, or pretty close to it, because reliability is really good, so you're not gonna have a ton of maintenance costs, and then the value holds so well. So if you put some miles on it, drive it for a few years, it's gonna be worth just not necessarily as much as what you paid for it, but pretty close. And so it's one of those vehicles, again, like you can drive for close to free, not exactly, but pretty close. And so if that's what you're looking for, then I'd definitely go for it. Yes, there's some other vehicles that might be a little bit more capable on the off-road, look a little bit cooler, have a little bit more modern tech, but they're not necessarily going to hold their value as well, and they're not going to be nearly as reliable as the TRD Pro is. Now let's get some things up for a video on this Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro. And again, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller Toyota here in Murray for giving me some time with this TRD Pro. Check out their inventory in the link below. I'll see all of you in the next video.